Welcome to the very first episode with a guest. Wow, episode 1. Thank you for being here. This is the Wilderness Within podcast with me, your host, Jonathan, aka Kai. We're here today with Mariana Jimenez, a sister from a different mother who I've known since 2015. We met in the lower Himalayas of Nepal through an NGO named Conscious Impact. And this is an organization, for those of you who've known me, that really shifted the course of my life and added a tremendous amount of value, immeasurable value to my life, one of which is Mariana. And this conversation was recorded in her home at the time in Tulum. We actually took a walk outside to nearby yoga center and holistic center called Holistika, and we walked in the gardens behind where the studios and buildings and hotel rooms are. There's an art walk that features many beautiful and expressive and interpretive art pieces, small and large, and for an hour and a half we just took a walk as we would as friends, but we very intentionally talked about certain topics that I've been wanting to do a deep dive with her, to A, get to know her better, and B, really bring forth some of the knowledge and experiences that Mariana has had throughout her life. So this really served as a connective piece for us as friends, and I really hope that some of the topics we covered are going to be of value and could maybe spark curiosity in community living, in natural buildings, in the way we see the world, the dynamic of being student and teacher, personal empowerment, and reflect on what kind of living situation could be ideal for you and those around you. So let's dive right in. Now, being that this is a conversation that we had over a year and a half ago, it took me a few times to really sink back to the headspace that I was in, that she was in. And since then, Mariana's life and my life certainly has shifted quite a lot. She has become a mother of her firstborn, Camila Rio, with her partner, husband, Orion, who's actually going to be the next guest for the Wilderness Within podcast. So it's only very appropriate that two people that have been a big part of my life, that have added a lot of value and joy and knowledge into my world, are the very first guests for this podcast that I'm launching. So thank you for being here. Sit back. Hope you enjoyed this conversation, and love to hear from any of you that's listening on what you got out of this conversation.
In my head, it's very clear, and I think it's 100% achievable. There's some things that I just don't know how to make happen. But When I think of Nepal as I know it. You know, camp full of people, still very engaging with the local community, hosting international volunteers. That's one element. But for me, and what I love and miss a lot, especially here right now, it's the community element. The living in a communal space, sharing the load, sharing chores, sharing, lifestyle together, and living close to nature as well. I don't think I ever took it for granted, but now that I'm not there, especially now more than ever, just appreciate it a lot more. And just how easy it was to be connected to yourself just by being in nature. How easy it is just to be in constant service by living in community, and how that sharing that load just gives you a lot more space individually just to put energy into the things that you want to do. Whether it's reading a book or writing a song or doing yoga or meditating or going for a hike, whatever it is, you name it. And it's okay. I think right now that I'm in a space where I work 9 to 5, 5 days a week, I don't have that space. I don't have that
choose
energy.
your own adventure.
I can't choose my own adventure.
Whereas, exactly.
And it's like, I mean, Orion's a great partner, and we both cook, we both clean, and I still feel like I do it all the time, you know, or like he does all the time. Like we just do it all the time. It's just like a constant. We are sharing a load between two, but I know it's counterintuitive, but it's much easier to share a load between 16, 20, 30 people. I see Nepal, and I hope that Nepal stays like that, just like communal living in community, in nature, still very much like a, you know, service part of what we do there. And I see Mexico the same. Okay. I don't see myself living with Orion, you know, on the land. Like I still want community living. I still want to be of service to not just our international community, but to the local community. I want Nepal in Mexico. That's what I would like to create. And I think that we have the skill sets, we have the people, we have the capacity, we have the knowledge. We've spent the last 6+ years developing the right method or the right way to do it. So yeah, it's definitely achievable. It's just not as easy to show up to a community and be like, hi, we want to live here. Hi, we want to be your neighbors.
Like, if you were to replicate a lot of these elements that we have lived by in Nepal the last 6 years, of course, start finding a community, right? That is receptive to that kind of interaction, right? You as perhaps someone that's not from that region to live there and share the space and have some sort of exchange, interaction, right? Yeah. And so that could be a multi-year process.
Exactly.
And then if you involve other people, let's say friends and maybe even family that you have, whether biological or chosen, then you'd have to maybe be the pioneers to find a space and find it together and set it up and formulate some sort of parameter, agreement, boundaries. Right? So it's like, you're in it for a long haul, that's for sure.
I'm in it, but I know what my skill sets are. Yes. And I feel really confident in those. But when it comes down to finding the community or you know, creating those relationships, I know I rely on others. And I think of those people being like Beth and Orion, you know, like where I don't myself feel comfortable or clear vision in that space, but I trust other people with my life to find that. I think Nepal was very easy because there was a clear need, the earthquake. You know, so it's a clear need for us to be there. People were really open because of that. But I think that's one part of the model that we don't want to repeat. We don't want to go into a community with a clear necessity for us to supply that. Because then I think the relationship dynamics are a little bit different. You know, we don't want to be perceived since the beginning as like, oh, they're here to help us. Because, you know, I don't want them to feel like the victims or we're here like to risk. That's not...
You don't want a savior mentality.
No. And I think we're really good at not doing that in Nepal either. But since the beginning, just going in as neighbors that will love to help, more than help it just to collaborate and just do things together versus, oh, we're here to...
And that's where a new space in Mexico could provide that blank canvas for you to come in there, not as a post-disaster unit.
Yes, exactly.
But truly as like, hey, we're new here, but here's what we want to create.
Yeah.
Are you in? Are you in?
Yeah.
But so speaking into the element of the skill sets that you can provide and, you know, those around you, maybe that you choose to live with and share time with can provide.
Yeah.
Talk more about that dynamic and like who you might need in a co-living situation like that. You must have around.
I want Greg, I want Allison, I want Beth, I want the same crew. Like I want the people that I've spent the last 6 years living with to be my family. And like if I and when have kids, like I want them to be, you know, the uncles and aunts. And because I think all of the people that have shared the last, you know, including yourself, obviously, like the way that you document things and the way that it's just, I think all of us bring something very special to the table. Yes. And for me, all of those things are very key. Like I want someone, I'm not going to be the one in the garden. You know, I'm not like, I love getting my hands there, but like, that's not, I appreciate it. I value it, but I'm not going to be the one overlooking. Totally. So I want someone like, ideally Greg, to be overlooking and be taking care of that element. And then, you have like Beth, like engaging with the community and trying to do projects. And then myself with like the building. I think that's also one of the values about living in community, that we all bring something different to the table. And like, that's how it works. Like I cannot be, or don't want to be doing it all.
Yeah, we value the diversity.
Yes.
And
embracing that.
And even if your strength and training is in the engineering, the building, and the envisioning of what a physical structure would and could look like, you still bring a lot more than that to the table. You bring art, you bring songs, you bring drumming, right? And just strength in so many different manners.
Yeah, I don't perceive myself like that. But it's true. I know it's true. I know.
I'm here to tell you as your past housemate that you do.
Thank you. I do forget about that. I do. I truly forget. But even, like chanting, just guiding that space sometimes, holding that space in the morning, the chanting, like people really value it and appreciate it. But like, I don't see myself as being that person, the drumming. Right. But it's part of being in that space. Like right here, not having that support system, not having that space. I'm not drumming.
Yeah.
I'm not singing. I'm not like, managing a fire, like
you can't even announce like, hey, tomorrow 7 a.m. chanting. Like,
exactly.
Who are you talking that to? Yeah. Who's gonna? That is one of the sadder ironies and realities of the way in which a lot of people live in urban environments, where they don't have pre-existing or formulated connections, and so they feel extremely isolated, ironically, even though they're physically next to thousands and thousands of people.
100%. It's so individual. It's very, very much like it's wild.
Quote, engagement rates, right? Like the way people do talk about marketing and social media. Like the most ironic thing is, like in a city, often the engagement level is really low.
It's so low.
Or
non-existent.
For example, non-existent in a lot of cases. I mean, some people have cultivated, our friends in Long Beach, California, right? They formulated their own kind of circles to have engagement. But, in your case, in Orion's case here, having been in Tulum for 4 or 5 months, like you have to basically filter through all the people that come through here, all the transients, the semi-locals, actual locals, and go, where do we have overlap? And it's like, the end result is very little, because you also have this time commitment that takes you away physically and energetically from being able to connect with others.
You're just drained by what society, quote unquote, like demands from you, but to live in a space like this.
Yeah.
I think also when we are somewhere like in Nepal, all those filters have already happened just by being in a space that already has chosen to be in a country like that already has chosen to be a volunteer, that already has chosen to being okay with camping, for example. Like that's already filtered, so the people that we get to share our experiences on a daily basis, like it's people that we're extremely already like-minded people.
Exactly.
And it's just such a beauty to it's very easy to connect with people that come to the space because you're already vibrating at a very similar, energetically.
Exactly.
You're already very like-minded.
Intentions.
Yeah, and when you're in a space, like even though I can be in Guadalajara with 7 million, but how many out of those 7 million people are like-minded or share similar values to mine? Yeah. And that's a part of I don't know. Especially it's very hard especially if I go to a bar, already
it's like random darts in the dark.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's where I question, and I'm glad you bring this up. I question, have cities gotten way too big for their own good?
Oh, 100%.
You see? And
there's no doubt.
Yeah, so going back to a more how our ancestors would have lived, smaller villages, where you actually at least know the names, or they belong to that family, or that's the type of work that they do, and they live here. At least you're acquainted, right, with everybody, and everyone's at most a second-degree connection away.
Yeah, I mean that's socially and psychologically, and for me the most obvious one is just even the physically, how do we the building part of it, the waste part of it, the food part of it. Yeah. For me, cities are definitely not sustainable. I'm not saying they're good or bad. Exactly. I'm just saying they're not sustainable. Right. They're not like a circular model that you can follow.
Not a close loop
they're
at
not
all.
exactly. They're not
Yeah.
meant. I mean, we didn't plan this, obviously, many years before, and it's sort of just like happening. But yeah, I don't think they're a sustainable way of living moving forward. And I think it's a hard topic because a lot of my friends and my family are still living in that setup. So I always want to be like really just mindful and kind and not just criticizing like, oh, I'm right, you're wrong. Like it's everyone's on their own path. Yeah. Everyone's on their own journey, and that's fine. Like I also know that not everybody's just going to like move to the mountains. Like that's not for everyone either. But the way that I see it and the way that I want to hold my values, I don't fit in a city space like anymore.
That is invaluable. The clarity that you have gained and I've gained and Orion has gained through especially having lived this way of lifestyle is abundantly clear to us now that this model that many people are subscribed to or are subscribing to because they're actually leaving their villages to go to cities and search for opportunities and so forth actually don't work for us. And I can only say for ourselves, right?
No, I agree.
And now any future decision or living situation and who you want to attract or re-attract in this case, how do we get our old friends to back in the same spot is with such better clarity on how, what, why, what, and when. Yeah. And speaking of when, there's an opportunity window coming up, right? Because you guys will finish your lease here.
Yes.
There's a plan, intention to leave around June.
Yes.
And you have now this like upcoming window of time to create it and to find it.
Yeah. I mean, it also comes with a lot of uncertainty and just being okay with that. I don't feel COVID has affected me in the way that it has affected other people, but I mean, maybe it's very similar in some ways and very different in others. Yeah. But I never like planned or thought that I was leaving Nepal for the amount of time that I left. I left thinking like, oh, I'm going to be back for the Sai. Like, I'll see you in a couple of months. Like, that was my mindset.
It's been a year.
And it's been over a year and a half. Now. Yeah. And it's been wild to like have been calling that space home for so long and then not being there. And then it's like, okay, it's COVID. And it's just, and now not sure what's going to happen. Yeah. Like still today, it's still like 2 years, after COVID, like still not knowing what's going to happen. I think Nepal is always going to be a home and I carry it in my heart. And every time I think about it, talk about it, brings me nothing but joy and also tears because I get very, very emotional. Yes. But it's not clear. I came to Tulum because it was a place where I knew I could find a job. It's developing rapidly and I thought I knew I could find some sustainable building. Yeah. So it was easy in a lot of ways. Right. But in a lot of ways, it's been very difficult. Like, again, like me and Orion had never lived in a concrete box. We've never had to deal with rent and electricity and Wi-Fi and a car.
Together, especially as a married couple.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, I haven't lived in that kind of like setup for like, 7+ years. So living that, I think we love each other and we're very comfortable with each other and that's been great. But every other element has been really challenging. Just in a way of like, reflecting. And I knew before that I didn't want to live this way, but now more than ever, I've experienced it, physically, mentally. Yeah. I have gone through the process of living this kind of life and, I'm like, okay, no, thank you. And then, we said, June, we'll go somewhere else. Where would that somewhere else will be? I don't think we're quite clear. Yeah. When we think about Mexico, we think about Oaxaca. Yes. Mountains. We like mountains. Oaxaca. Yeah. It has a lot to offer but we don't know. We don't know how that connection will happen. Yeah. And I think we still have a lot of energy and love in Nepal. So also waiting for when that's a good moment for us to go back. But, exactly. June is the beginning of monsoon. So can't be Nepal quite yet.
We're awaiting for signs, but also not just idling, taking a proactive, patient stance on what could be. When the opportunity comes, you can answer to it. Yeah. Yeah. So it's a
transition.
It's exciting. It's exciting. Yeah. We're looking at a mirror here, where it's a transition period too. It seems like for all the beings.
Well, it's so funny. Like, I think we're talking. I know that you guys can see it, but maybe Jaylee will share a picture of this, but it's like you can see it's like a seedy sort of element with a person like wearing a suit and like a face very snake-like going through.
Yeah, with scales, literally, and a tail.
Going through like a portal or like a door change with the universe. And then, it's so funny because we're talking about this and we're standing on this mural.
It's very fitting. And there's celestial bodies and flowers. Yeah. Another portal.
Time.
Feminine and masculine energies. Yeah. The brain with time tipping on the top. It's a powerful piece. Yeah. So speaking of transitions and portals.
Yeah, let's walk through it.
Walk through it.
Oh.
It's only fitting.
Yeah.
It seems like we're dealing with the repercussions of deforestation.
DNA.
Coming to terms with our own DNA and how it's from the cosmos. And on the other side is a person, I would argue a female figure, poking her head into a gigantic flower.
Yeah. And there's a beautiful hummingbird flying behind her with like a key.
Return to source, return to nature and her creations.
Yeah.
That's how I interpret it.
So Tulum has something to offer like this, and it's nice to go on a walk and
we're both grateful for this nature art walk here, where it's quiet.
Yeah.
Because the city's not. I want to dive into the upbringing part, because that part really fascinates me, because I see it as, and pun intended, the foundation of a building. And you are, in my eyes, in my opinion, a solid building, because you've had a very solid and diverse background to draw your experiences and knowledge from. And I've learned actually
only recently.
Yeah, very recently, a few days ago, about the US-Mexico back and forth, and then that brief stint in France after high school, and then was the time that I did hear about in London. And so you have had in your first 20 or so years of your life.
Oh, you haven't even heard about Argentina.
Yeah, you see what I mean?
Other
At
countries.
least these 5 different countries, regions that has shaped you to who you are.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to make it, I guess, a bit more brief. What are some of the, I guess, really outstanding elements, maybe moments of time where you're like, this was a pivot moment, this was a pivot moment. And so just briefly describe these spots. Like, for example, you were telling me how Toulouse, you had this epiphany. You're like, wait, what do you mean people don't have tortillas and beans every day? God. Right? Yeah. And then, of course, needing to speak a new language. And where your common language with others was the little French that you knew. Yeah. You could not rely on neither
Spanish or
Spanish.
English. Yeah.
Which, you had already gotten good at. But you're like, oh, this third new language that I have. Maybe you're even thinking like, why did I choose France? But yeah, what are some of these pivotal moments that really defined your childhood and teenage years?
That's a great question. I mean, I think it's hard to, I'm sure I will forget a couple of them.
Take what we can get.
Yeah, and to shape me the person that I am today, I definitely have to say a lot of it, I don't know if it's just genetics, but just I come from a lineage, I think, of very strong, independent women. So I was like traveling by myself since a very young age. Like the fact that, like we moved to the States and I was just traveling overnight buses from Guadalajara to Texas.
Dang, that's a long way.
Yeah, but I was like 12 years old, but like there was no fear around it. I think my mom and my grandmother and everybody was just very supportive. Like obviously taking the precautions, coming, and like, they used to like come and talk to the chauffeur and be like, she's going by herself all the way. Like make sure you keep an eye on her. But like there was never fear around me being independent. So I think that just like shaped me into just traveling for 3 months around the US and Canada on a bus, like just my family being nothing but supportive. So I think just like them pushing me, and my grandmother was the same, and she took so much pride of like how much I was like that, like her, because she also just like moved right, left, up, down.
Her as well.
Yeah, her as well. Yeah.
This is the grandmother in McKellen.
Well, she lived her whole life in, was from Texas, lived in Chicago, met my grandfather, and just the rest of her life in Guadalajara. Only the last couple of years she was in McAllen, Texas. But
she's seen some travel in her years.
Yeah. Not like, not outside of Mexico and the U.S., but within her story and her mindset, like that was already pretty much.
But
like,
that ability, right, which in her generation was somewhat even more rare, was then passed on to your mother, and then
she was a gringa coming to a very small town in Michoacan. Like everybody in Michoacan was dressing, you know, like dresses, like skirts, long skirts. She was the only one wearing jeans and like hats. Like she was like she came to a small town in Michoacan when she married my grandfather. So she went through like a lot of like also like shocking. Like for me was, I'm in Toulouse, there's no tortillas. She went to a place where there was no Walmart and no McDonald's. And she went to like a meat store with like the cow hanging, and she almost like fainted because she'd never seen that in her life.
I didn't realize she was a gringa from Walmart land.
She was, all of her lineage was Mexican, but she was in Texas when the transition happened. So she was sort of like the generation that she wasn't allowed to speak Spanish. Like her grandmother only spoke Spanish, but she wasn't allowed to speak Spanish at school. Like they would just like hit her in the hands for like, she would tell that story. So she was Mexican because her grandparents and, you know, grandmother and like mom were Mexican, but she was in this transitional phase in Texas, and then they moved to Chicago. So in Chicago was even like, you know, you're more far away. Gathering that from them since a very young age, is very independent woman, like with traveling and moving. Traveling was just for me just the biggest school. It just takes you out of whatever you think the reality is. It's like, no, it's not. You just get to see other cultures, other languages, other religions, other building. Like, I don't think you're as aware when you're doing it, but it just keeps breaking these barriers that we have created in our heads unconsciously, you know, not intentionally. Then all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is another reality of lifestyle that I had no idea it existed. I think growing up in Mexico, we're very sheltered in the way of everybody's Mexican. Everybody's Catholic. You don't question that. You don't ever, I didn't even encounter
it's
like
so
all the religions. And
you wouldn't know otherwise.
You wouldn't know. Everybody goes to bautizos. Like, it's just, you don't question people's religion or background or anything. Not in a mean way. It's just, it's not, we're all Mexicans.
Totally.
We're all Catholic, you know, and that kind of like uprising. So diversity was just not something that I even thought about because I wasn't exposed to it.
So you had the traveling on your own.
I was very young when I did that. I think I was like, you know, we were going to Canada and going to the States, but it was still sort of familiar in a way. I think, not even Europe, honestly, because Europe was still like, everybody's pretty much Catholic. It's like still like churches and stuff. And even though there's different language and different food and there's no tortillas, which I found shocking, and no Valentina and no like spicy candies. And there was a lot of things that I didn't find, but it was not as radical. But Asia, that's when it hit me.
Which was now in your late teens, early 20s?
I was 18. I was 18 when I went to Thailand, Cambodia.
This was a similar time
Malaysia.
as when you went to Toulouse in France.
Yeah, this was on the same trip. I took a 1.5 year gap. So it was Toulouse, first experience living away, like not different continent, different country, fully by myself. I was 18. And that same year, I took a 1.5 year gap year after high school prior to university, and that's a trip that I went to Asia, and that was like blew my mind.
Let's talk about that mind-blowing experience. Like, you just had your world turned upside down, inside out.
Definitely.
You had new sensations, smells, sounds, everything.
Yeah, everything. Again, going back to how sheltered Mexico is, like, we eat Mexican food, there's Italian obviously, and Japanese. Like, I didn't grow up eating Indian food.
Right.
Pad Thai, like that didn't exist on my nothing. So going to Asia was just Buddhism, like monks, like architecture, like just everything was new.
Yeah.
Like colors, smells, everything was just very.
Might as well have been a different planet for you.
And the funny thing is that, okay, I was Asia, years later, I traveled in South America. So you think you think like, oh, I travel, I know what it's like. And then I went to India. And it's just like, oh, you think you know, but then no, you don't, like, you can never create certain like I don't know, expectations, I guess. I don't know what's the word I'm looking
or
for.
even
But like,
preparation.
you're always going to be shocked. Like,
Yes.
there's always going to be different cultures. There's always going to be something that's still new and different. Even though you think in your head that you know, you don't. And, you know, sometimes you don't have to go that far away. I know a lot of people that living in the city, even just going to a small town on the outskirts of the city is such a different lifestyle. Even in one city, you know, just like one neighborhood versus another, it's completely different worlds and different realities.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go across the world to have the awareness of just different realities. You know, even there's a lot of indigenous languages in this country that I don't speak and I don't understand. And, you know, it doesn't have to be sexy Thai or Vietnamese. Like, it can just be within your own country.
The theme I keep hearing as I hear you talk about that briefly is just being a sponge and soaking up the colorfulness and the diversity of the world, and being a student to all there is to learn, right?
Yeah.
What I'm also hearing is that process never really stops. And you're really enjoying being able to learn from, as you said, even from your youth, like traveling and just seeing different scenes. But more than ever, as you're able to, as an adult, travel to different places on your own, with friends, with now your husband, that process just continues and continues.
Yes.
But yet at the same time, what's really fascinating to me is that as you're accumulating also this like knowledge, right? And you have a degree and you've now taught workshops, you're overseeing projects, and you're actually teaching others. Like, you're now in this really fun position where you're both a student of the world and also you're a teacher for others. So I'd like you to share some thoughts, especially around a time, for example, when we were building our first dome together with the earth bags, and how you were placed in that position as the primary instructor on teaching a very international group of people how to build a home. How did that feel? What did you gain from it, even though you were in a position of teacher? And maybe like some longer term effects from that.
I think I was put in a position even before the dome experience. I think when we started making the bricks, that was the first time that I felt that I was responsible for something much, much bigger than myself. And like, actually, like, there was nobody else to blame. Like, I was the one bringing the technique, teaching a crew of both Nepalese and international communities to make these bricks that this whole reconstruction model is based on. So that was the first time that I was just like also put in a position
earth bricks.
With the earth bricks. It was less formal than like the actual workshop, because there wasn't like a certificate. It was just like a ongoing day-to-day teaching. And I was just able, I think that everybody can be a great teacher when you know what you're teaching. When you're passionate enough of what you know, then you don't realize how much knowledge you have gained over the years through passion, through studies. And you forget, or I keep forgetting that people don't know really about sustainable building, or why is that a thing, or, you know, that there's all these other ways of building exist. Like, in my head, it's just taken for granted. So when I had to teach people about earth, or how stabilizing earth, or how to build, like, it's already there. Like, I don't have to make this extra effort. People can just pick on my brain, and that's already it in some ways. Obviously, from the engineering part, I like to have organized classes, like when it comes to a workshop. But yeah, putting myself in that position, not having an option to back out of it, it was just a great way to push through it. You know, just like, and just confirm that, oh, I can do this. I can teach people. I can empower people. I can transmit the information that I have. I'm capable of doing that.
Yeah.
And when I did the first dome workshop, I think it was just like, again, a confirmation of that. And I just felt nothing but support by the community, having my back, and being able, nothing but like accommodating on that space. And then I don't know if all my workshops are going to be the same, but the students were amazing, and we just had a blast. Like, it was such a good crew. It was so fun. It was just so, you know me, I like efficiency, and I thought it was also very efficient.
What's really interesting to me as I hear your answer is that often we are the biggest doubters of our own abilities and knowledge. The theme of community is very important. It takes a community of people around you to cheer you on, to reaffirm that you're capable, to put you into a position where everyone is looking at you for knowledge and guidance.
I mean, I think it's also like personality-wise. I think some people are just very confident in that space, and like now I feel very confident, like enough that I can pitch the idea to people, be like, hey, I want to do this workshop because I've done it before. Yeah. You know, like, but it doesn't come from like a cocky place of like, oh, I'm like, I know. It's just like, hey, I have this information, I have this knowledge, I would love to share it. I would love to share this skill set. And for me, it is a lot about embracing and empowering people to build with their own hands. To just for them to know that they're capable, whether they're going to go ahead and do it or not, whether they're going to buy land and do it or not. It's just like, you can do this. Like, you have the capacity to do it yourself. And for me, just like sharing that, it has a lot of value. Also, maybe speaking from my own history of, I went into university thinking, hoping, wishing, dreaming that I was going to be all about sustainable building. And that wasn't the case. I had one class in 5 years about sustainable building, one class. And we touched base on Adobe for like 45 minutes. Didn't know how to search for these workshops or how to, like, where can I learn? Like, when can somebody teach me how to do these alternative ways of, I didn't have access to that. So
the value you have as constantly a student of the world, because you're always soaking up more knowledge, but also now as a teacher and instructor is you can be that person that's showing, hey, these kind of techniques are available. Most able-bodied people are capable of doing it. Yes. And you're really just a conduit, a catalyst of empowerment so that more people can pick it up. Yeah. Because you're not sharing your knowledge, as you said. I like the way you chose the wording there. You're sharing the knowledge not from a place of like egotistical, like stroking yourself, like hey, like I'm the know-it-all, but you're just like, dude, y'all can build too. Yeah. Like, let's like roll up these sleeves and do it.
Just do it.
And if people have the time and the physical labor hours, then houses could be erected and built with much safer materials, much lower cost, and a much lower negative impact on our environment and our bodies.
I mean, these questions, I think a lot of people can argue opposite because it's so labor intensive. But again, for me, I think this is also a way of filtering interest. For example, like if you're in a big city and you want to build like a 10-story building, then no, like super Adobe is not the way to go. No. Or, and like, but why? It's not because it's not possible, it doesn't work. It's because it's that 10-story building, in my opinion, it's not sustainable.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that's not a way that we should be building.
You question its existence.
Yeah,
does it have to be there?
Yeah, does it have to? What's the purpose? Like, in the least amount of space, I can put the most amount of people. Yeah. And just thinking like, okay, that's 10 stories, that's 10 families, that's 10 cars, that's 10 bathrooms, that's 10, for me, it's like, no, I'd rather just, like, if I'm going to build. And for me, that's why also another huge, just going back to that question, like moment of realizing what I wanted to do is when I volunteered over the summer in the coast of Nayarit. So I was volunteering for 3 months and we're visiting all these rural communities. And for me, like, that's, you don't need to be building like stories. Like if you're just building housing, just simple houses for simple families. Like even there, like you can have a huge impact. I've always had this number in my head, but people maybe don't know, but pollution of the world overall is about 40% into the construction industry.
40%.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So we're saying nearly half. And that is something that most of us don't even think about. Yeah. Because people think about household, maybe manufacturing, cars, airplanes, boats, maybe.
Which is also, I mean, I'm sure it also has a big number.
40% comes from construction because none of us see it. Because once you live in a house,
you don't think about it. Yeah. No. I mean, you might, if you're traveling Europe, you see all these cranes, they're just giant ones and they're always there. But like if you just look at if you just pay attention, if you're ever on the road, I don't know about the US, but at least in Mexico is very common, or even in Nepal. I mean, the amount of trucks that you see that are moving cement and steel. Yeah. It's like on a daily basis, you see trucks moving with this materials.
That example you gave me yesterday, or maybe 2 days ago of like the project you're working on right now in town.
Oh, yeah.
It's a 3-story building with 10 guest rooms. It's a hotel being renovated. And the amount I remember is you have already moved away 7-8 truckloads of garbage, and it's only a renovation project.
It's only a renovation project.
Still more to be moved
and
away.
We actually did 2 more today. So we already got 9 truckloads of just trash. Whether like just
stuff that is going to end up in a landfill.
Yes.
That's going to maybe pollute water.
Sadly, here in Tulum, it actually just goes into the jungle. It's very, very sad.
Yeah, like literally, it's not even a fill.
It's not even a fill. It's just like,
it's a lump of garbage in the jungle.
Exactly. It's wild. And I think, for me, that's why I'm passionate about it. Like, okay, people, humans, we're not going to stop building. Like, that's just not reality. Like, you can't put this, like, So for me, like, moving forward, it's like, hey, let's just do it more sustainable. Let's just do it more friendly with the earth. And I think there's a lot of builders out there. They're super like, no cement, and that's great. For me, I'm all about trying to be as sustainable as possible and safe as possible and efficient as possible. So for me, like, I'm not against using steel and cement. Yeah. But you can reduce it by like 80% or 90%, choosing a more like sustainable way of building. Yeah. Like, it's okay. They're there for a reason. That that's fine. But just use it in a smart way. Just use it in a way like you actually need it. Like, is that the foundation? Is that the roof? Like, or plastering? Whatever. Yeah. Whenever you need to bring those elements into the space, fine, go for it.
What can you offset with material that is more regional, that has a lesser impact, that creates a less
and
less
none
waste?
of this is new. I mean,
no.
We humans have been building shelters for ourselves for thousands and thousands of years.
Long before.
Cement has only been around for 200 years.
It's like, in terms of, it's like a sugar addiction. It's newer in our life, but we've been able to grow it, process it, package it, ship it everywhere. And cement and rebar is kind of like that. Yeah. So
it's fast, it's cheap, it's available. Yeah. And so therefore you don't even think about like other options. Or then I think the industry itself, or even speaking honestly about even teachers myself, like they're not encouraging me to build with earth. Back in school, I remember like university, me like asking like, I don't know, like teach me how to build with Adobe. They're like, no, that doesn't work. It's gonna fall in the earthquake. I'm like, there's towns built with Adobe for over 100 of years. Like they're not going anywhere. They're not falling down. Like they're fine. Exactly. But like nobody's teaching me how to do that.
We are in a jungle where the Mayans live, and there are buildings from 2,000 years ago that are still standing. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Through all the storms, tornadoes, natural events.
Hurricanes, everything.
Yeah, and even some of the plaster and color remains like 1,000, 2,000 years later. So it's like, hey, there's value in realizing that we've always done this, and this new reliance on this extremely carbon-intensive material that is strong, that is useful, doesn't have to be relied on as much as we do.
Exactly.
And the way that you and I have built in Nepal, and you in Dominica and other parts of the world, you have firsthand seen a gigantic reduction in the amount of waste products. And also just like, there's just less chemicals leaching into the soil, and that we're literally handling with our hands and smelling and so forth.
Yeah, and some people can even argue like you're also living in a safer environment yourself. Like when you're inside an earth home, it's a very different feeling that you're inside like a concrete home or like a steel, Yeah, and I think also a huge thing that, again, this like, I think we live in this like fake, we think that we have control over. I think humans, we really want to control everything. Yeah. And the fact that we think that we're just building to be able to withstand all these like natural disasters. I'm like, we can to an extent, like to a degree. And let's say like, okay, I'm building this structure because the worst earthquake, it's on this region, it's 6. I have no idea if in 20 years or 200 years, it's going to be a 10 point, like a 9.2 or a 8.7. Like I'm only building this thinking that, oh yeah, it's safe and it's strong. And I'm thinking like, obviously over generations, by building with concrete and steel, you might think it's strong. Okay, it's strong. Maybe at some point it's not going to withstand something. And when that falls down, it's just trash. It's not going anywhere. Yeah. When you build, let's say Apalapa here in Mexico, it's very common, and it's like basically a thatched roof. Okay. When you build with thatched roof and a hurricane comes through.
That's right.
It goes away. like it falls down. Like I'm not saying I'm wishing or you should build thinking.
But
Let's say it's just a reality. Okay, it's gonna like fall down.
Right.
It's all not like exactly. All just disappear, and nothing will happen. And you just build a new one.
Yeah.
You know, the same with Earth. Like, oh, if it's Adobe, like okay, you can like reshape it. I'm not saying that you're building, thinking or expecting that it's gonna fall down. But in 100 years or 200 years or whenever it happens, it's only going back to the Earth.
For example, with a thatch roof, you can patch certain parts and it's not as heavy. So even if it falls down, the risk it has on people living inside is significantly lower.
Yeah.
Right? You can literally just put in a compost and you can source the
And again, when you're building houses for like families, like that's not as dangerous as living in a 10-story, you know, apartment.
For evacuation and also this element that I think we've talked about is like the ability and empowerment of repair. If you live in a home that's made with cob, Adobe, those sort of materials that are sourced like within maybe 200 meters of your home, the inhabitants can learn how to repair it themselves because their materials are right there, and it doesn't take like an
expert or
you don't have to hire a consultant or a contractor to do it. You can literally mix the clay sand ratio with the lime and just patch an area that's fallen.
I think an element of communities and going back to like, you know, indigenous communities or building your shelter, building your home, it was also a very much like a community shared experience. Even when I was volunteering, that was the theme. Like they were all trying to build houses. So like, let's say like 10 families agree that, okay, we're building each other's 10 houses. We're going to focus on yours first, and then we're going to move to the second one, and so over. And I think even in Nepal they do it. You know, that when they plaster, so all the women will like gather, and they can just replaster someone's house, and then they to the next one. Like I think building your house, it's also about community, and building it yourself. It doesn't have to be. I think when people try to think of it from like a business model, it gets a little bit tough because you do require a lot of labor. Like it's very much hands-on. But ideally, if you have, like, let's say you want to build a cob oven. You don't need to hire people. Have your friends come over, like bring some beer and pizza, and just like, hey, we're all gonna like play with mud today. You're gonna build an oven. How much more fun is that?
Like, it's memorable, and I even don't want to use the words time. I was gonna say it costs us time. No. Like I even want to remove that kind of language and thinking from my head. It brings us together instead of seeing it as like, oh, it's costing everybody this amount of resources. It's like, no, it's a great reason to bring your best friends or those who are keen on building together for a gathering and creation together. Yeah. Like, isn't that such a more beautiful way to look at it too?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great way to go, and like I feel very lucky. Like even Dominica, I was working with like this Haitian crew, and then right now I'm working with this Mayan crew, and there's always such interest from them. Like they just see that these techniques are more affordable overall. Yes. They're safe. They're strong. They just see that. Like I don't have to like sell it. It's just like I'm teaching them how to build with it, and they can just see like, oh, yeah, can I build my house with this? Like the amount of times that they ask me if they can build their house, I'm like, yeah, like
you're changing minds. Yeah, because you're exposing your crew to these so-called newer ways. Yeah, you're actually just reviving these ancient techniques that actually have been in existence for hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember, like in Nepal, when we built the common space, the only people that knew how to build a thatch roof, it was all the grandparents.
Yeah.
It was all the elders that were doing the thatch roof.
Right.
For me, even just like also, even here or anywhere else, like we can just engage to have those techniques alive, you know, like, and even in that space, when we build the common space, the younger generations, like, their kids and their grandchildren were like there and just seeing it. Like, I think even by like encouraging that kind of building, then hopefully will also help for those techniques to survive.
Yeah, to be preserved and passed down.
Yes.
As I was reviewing the conversation with Mariana, she reminded me to give a little more context as to what conscious impact is. because she and I and several upcoming guests talk about conscious impact so much. So much so that we used the letter CI to talk about it instead of saying conscious impact. And so I wanted to take a few minutes to explain to those of you who are new to the name and the organization what it is and what we do. So Conscious Impact was born out of the earthquakes, the big earthquakes in Nepal. They happened in late April and May 2015. And two of my close friends from a long time ago, we used to work for the same nonprofit that works in Latin America and in Ghana. They happened to be trekking in the Everest Base Camp area when the first earthquake hit. And so what they learned in the aftermath is the earthquake was far more devastating than they had thought, because they were quite a bit of a ways outside the epicenter. But the epicenter was close to Kathmandu, which is the capital and largest city in all of Nepal. And the valley surrounding it is pretty densely populated. The earthquakes took thousands of lives and leveled even more homes in the regions affected. And what my friends and I realized was there was so much work to be done that this is going to be going on for months, if not years, to follow. So after the trek, as they came back to Kathmandu, they teamed up with local community leaders, local NGOs, nonprofits, passing out emergency supplies and just helping out in whatever way possible. And they soon also teamed up with some big international NGOs that were coming through. And what they realized in the weeks and months that followed was there's a desire by some Nepalis to rebuild with natural building materials and techniques. And that's when they found a group of Nepalis from a village that's called Takure, about 5 hours outside of Kathmandu, that were really keen on doing this, and doing this in a scale where as many homes from their village and maybe surrounding villages would be able to adopt, because it was really cost prohibitive, and a lot of Nepalis don't trust their government to give out aid and help. And they know that because they're so far from the capital city, they would likely be forgotten. So they quickly took it into their own hands to find workshops to learn how to build with these techniques. And that's when they found my friends Orion and Alan. And Orion is the guest for the next episode. And so as the weeks and months went by, this relationship grew, and it became clear that my friends have had the international development experience, having worked in Central America and in Ghana, and they have the capacity to fundraise and bring eager volunteers, helping hands from North America and Europe and other parts of the world to come and help out with this rebuilding efforts. And so from September 2015 onwards, they started fundraising and getting people to build a base camp for all of the volunteer operations, and in receiving the incoming earth brick machine from India. And to this day, Conscious Impact exists to serve the community of Takure and the surrounding areas. We've since diversified into not only the area of natural building techniques, we've also worked a lot with local youth from as young as the elementary school level up to the high school level. And we've partnered with local teachers, nonprofits that have sent us incredible humans and resources along the way. To last but not least, we have the agriculture program that work with local farmers, which is a high majority of them, because about 99% of them are subsistence farmers, which means they grow most of the food they eat. And we knew that to connect with them means that we would have to talk their language of food growing, of agriculture, and how to sustain themselves, not only from the nutritional standpoint, but also financially. How they would take certain products to the market. If they have surplus, what kind of cash crops would they focus on if the year had this kind of weather? And how do we also, at the same time, nurture the environment, rebuild the soil, and maybe slow down or even reverse the rates of deforestation, because there is a lot of that happening. And we can see in a region where erosion and erratic climate patterns are already affecting farmers and that their yields are not as effective. So all to say, an ongoing conversation at every level to come to understand on both sides and more what the needs are, and to have a ongoing dialogue and determine what not only the needs are, but what solutions could we implement together to build a more connected and thriving community. And so I wanted to read on the website of Conscious Impact, the mission, which I really resonate with. To connect people to themselves, each other, and the earth through community service work around the world. Yeah, I really believe in that to be true. Having spent time there myself in late 2015 to mid 2020 during the pandemic, I can really stand behind that statement. And certainly, even though the work has been physically in Nepal at our camp in Thakure, the seeds that have been sown in the minds of all the people who have come through, which by this point must be hundreds and hundreds of individuals from around the world, everyone has really taken the skills and interests and talents that they have brought from the regions where they call home to Nepal, and they've skilled up, learned from the community, learned from each other, and they're bringing back to the places and communities where they live and devote themselves to. And so really it's become a Himalayan base camp for not just trekking, but for ideas to implement, to really be implemented in other parts of the world to make what we hope and intend to make the earth a better place. Conscious Impact has really given a lot to me. It's offered me a lot of personal growth. It has taught me so many hard skills and soft skills. It's allowed me to expand my artistic eye and ability to see myself as part of a greater microcosm, and that I play a small but important role in places that I go to. And being able to storytell visually and through audio and video has been really magical. It's given me a lot of fulfillment and feeling of satisfaction. It's opened up my eyes to the world and so many challenges and perspectives that exist. And it's allowed me to kick off this podcast with 3 of the most important humans of not just Conscious Impact, but in my own life in the last 8 years. With that said, let's jump back to the conversation with Mariana.
Part of the vision that I have, going back to your first question, it's being able to enable local communities to maintain their languages, to maintain their recipes, to maintain the medicine, from the plants as well.
Exactly.
Like just knowing what kind of tea is good for your belly, and and we have it in Nepal as well, like mama or Parvati, like anybody in our community. Like when I twisted my ankle, they came and did like this mix, and it's like a certain way of doing things. They were just not putting like they had to like bring it to a boil and like this amount of cow dung and this amount of clay, and it has to be like.
Did you say cow dung? Yes, it's medicinal.
Yeah, they use it for everything.
You're right. They're knowledge holders.
Yeah.
And really,
being able to preserve that. And I think everybody right now, I mean, it's been happening for generations, obviously, but people continuously leaving the mountains or the rural living to go into the city space, and we're just really every day languages are dying. They're disappearing. Yeah. So for me, hopefully, if I can just help in any way, shape, or form to maintain some of that ancient knowledge, will be.
This is like preservation of culture and identity through revitalizing ancient building technologies.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of people that live in
that's like your tagline.
In a urban like spaces that they want. That people are seeking. It's becoming more of a thing. People are seeking. Wanting to build like that. They want to live differently. They want to go back to the land. They want to. So I'm not saying we're the majority, but it's there. There's an interest. There's an awareness.
I do believe too. There's a steadily building critical mass no matter what stage of that realization, awakening, so to speak, you're at, whether it's like, oh, the way we've been living is not right or not sustainable or both, and you're like, there must be something else. Maybe you begin the search, you don't even know what keywords to find. And some people may be like, oh, I know, I just got dropped this like keyword or phrase or technique to look up. And then they start, basically their search into a new rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And it is going to be people like yourself that can be like guides, really, if I had to think of it in that way, to bring more people into this critical mass.
We did that, I think, in Nepal. We did it very, very well. Like being of service, not just to the community where we live, but being of service to the people that come through. Because I think a lot of times, especially nowadays with social media, you can see things online, and it's like, oh my God, it looks amazing, blah blah blah, and it looks great, but like really questioning, like, does that even work? Can you see it in real life? And then I think people coming through camp and seeing it themselves, like, oh, this is not just a nice post of an earth-back dome. Like, I'm actually able to see it myself.
See it, feel it.
I feel it, like, see with my eyes. I'm actually building with wattle and dove, and I can see that, like, oh, you can build with bamboo and earth, and that's it. Like, oh, composting latrines, they actually work. Oh, this is how you do it. And like, it just being able to also be like sort of like a showcase to this, like just for people from all over the world that want to come and see it. Like, yes, it's possible.
That's right.
Yes, composting latrines are great.
Yeah, and we've been pooping in it for 6 years.
And we create our own compost, and we're not polluting any rivers.
We've created fruit out of our own compost. We have closed the loop in this regard, right? Yeah. Like, oh, the hippies are right after all. Yeah. I think what's really beautiful is that we have been in service. You're absolutely right. And I love that component is something that's essential, integral to your future living situation.
100%.
And, I want to be a part of something like that, which is why, this is why we cross paths in Nepal, right? What's really cool, I think our last count, when we actually try to do a tally, was that we've had people, I don't know the number at this point, maybe Beth does, but we have had people from over 35 countries come from camp.
I think that's about right. Yeah.
And so I think what's really cool in light of what you have just shared is all of these people have not stayed in Nepal. All of these people are from different places. They've traveled to other places. Some of them are hosting workshops, like our friend from Belgium, Joe. He's like doing a workshop in a week or two. On building a dome. And so they're taking these seeds with them, figuratively, and then spreading it to more places and growing it. So I think that's the element, I think, of optimism and hope and just like really beautiful assimilation, right? Replication.
Yeah, no, I think it's just beautiful, like for just inspiring people, just seeing it through themselves and just whatever they take from that. I mean, it could be just an experience of like, nice memory back in Nepal, or you can grow a lot more. I think we've also heard from a bunch of people that they decided to go into a specific kind of study or a master's degree, or they changed their jobs because they were so inspired by their experience in Nepal that it changed their life, like literally, like they chose a different path, like something. I think it's just when you offer a space of such pure opportunities for like true connection. Again, like when I think our model says like to yourself, to others, and to the land. Yeah, magic happens. I think it does. And I like it because it's not like when you're going into a retreat. I love retreats. It's not to criticize, but like you go with the intention of like, oh, I want to change my life, or I want this clarity to come to me. It's such a, and I think in what we have in Nepal, it's just very organic. It just happens because you're in a setup. And I think it's a mix of things. It's not just one element. I think it's everything that we do.
It's not linear at
being
all.
In nature, being of service, working with your hands, getting your hands in the dirt. Like, it's not just one of the elements that work.
Multifaceted.
And it just happens very organic when you're in a space like that, when you're being grateful every day as a daily practice. Boom, I think just like something happens. And I think that's very, very beautiful to witness and to live in that space and to offer that, to not just myself, but like to other people and to visitors and family. I think my mom and my brother, when they came, they also had a very like strong, in their own ways, but as little as my mom sort of she eats less meat now, and she went through this whole
due to her time there.
Yes. Oh yeah, she was really inspired by her time there.
Yeah.
She actually sort of, that's the reason why she quit her job. Because she was like, I want to live my life differently, and I'm just like working too much. And she got inspired to like try out yoga, and she went back and like took painting classes. And yeah, as a reminder at, you know, whatever age you are, like just to reconnect with yourself and with nature. And
that is so close and dear to your heart. Your beloved mother not only went to Nepal, I had a chance. That's my first time meeting her.
Yeah,
And Louise, actually. That's the aftermath.
Yeah.
That is, you know, speaking of like pivotal moments and experiences in life, that is one for her.
Yes. Yes.
And also for you too, as her daughter, and having her there and then seeing the changes that came in the weeks and months and years that followed. Like how incredible, monumental is that?
Yeah. No, and I know it's just, I mean, it's my mom, so I know it, you know, firsthand, but I am sure that everybody that has come through has had an experience like that, you know, something just very deeply changed in them, or just the awareness or the memories or, you know, the relationships. Like, it's just such a pure space. A lot of it has to do with being in Nepal and the magic that the Himalaya mountains hold.
Sure.
But I also think it's just when you're in I think it can happen anywhere. You know, when you have those elements, when you're truly connected to nature, when you're truly being of service, when you truly have time and energy, the choices that we have on a daily basis when you live in a city space, like, is just tiring. Like, I love that, for example, when you live in community, like, I don't have to think of what I'm going to be eating 3 times a day. It just happens. Like, other people are cooking. I'm just going to show up, but there's a meal ready. Yeah. I don't have to look at a menu. And like, I think sometimes, like, the amount of choices that we have to make on a daily basis, it's overrated. We think like, oh, I'm very blessed and I'm very honored that I have the ability to choose.
Right.
And in many ways that's true. But I think, again, for me, the key is sustainable. Like, being sustainable, like, for me, sustainability means also just balance. And I think when you're in a space, like, it's just out of balance, the amount of choices that you have to make. Not even on a daily basis, or like on an hour basis. Like,
oh my gosh.
Food, clothing,
100%.
driving, like, which street are you taking? Like, it's just, you don't think of it, but when you're put in a position that you haven't thought about, like in Nepal, like, I don't use money. I live in a space where I don't even have to think about my wallet. I can go weeks without using money.
Well, the way we have set up our community.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And I'm not saying it's
but it's true. But it's a good example of how we have very intentionally simplified our lives so that we can better recalibrate ourselves and focus on what we're there for. When
I talk to people, I think it sounds very intense when I explain it the way that we live.
Yeah.
It sounds very dramatic of like, we don't have a fridge and we don't have a microwave and we walk everywhere. People are just like, what? Like, it sounds crazy, but you know, you were there. It happened very organically. Like, it just, and you don't think about it. When I'm there, I don't think like, oh my God, I wish I had a microwave. No, like, we've created a system that it works, and I don't think of not having those things. I would have never planned to sign up something like that. It just happened. And I'm really grateful and honored to just like how smooth that transition was.
Yeah.
And my first learnings from being in that space, just being really aware of like, I need very little to live as a human being. Like, when society tells me that I need a lot more things, but like in reality, like day to day, like I need very little.
I do remember hearing it from multiple sources. Could be YouTubers, could be documentaries, I'm not sure. But on a daily basis, folks who live modern urban lifestyles have to make about 30,000 decisions.
Wow.
Micro to macro. Wow. And an individual from, let's say, a economically developed country of, you know, decent economic standing, they own like over 10,000 items. And you really only use about a few percentage of that on the regular. And so when you have this much physical stuff, as well as all of these things that just chip away at your ability to think clearly or focus, or your energetic expenditure, right? Your tank, so to speak, of energy that you have each day when you wake up, no matter how well you sleep. Like, what are we left with, right? After all of those decisions, accounting for all of those physical items, you know, and of course, not just the well-being of only yourself, but maybe those of your immediate surroundings, your family, friends, and so forth. It's like, what is left is so small, or maybe you're like in the negative. And so maybe some people have to work another job to make up for the negative in the finances, or they have to sleep an extra hour when they're physically really tired. And that takes away fundamentally their connection to themselves and what they may express as an individual free of others' needs of them. So I find it as a sad reality that hopefully when we get to the core of it, we can evaluate and kind of rediscover that.
For me, it's all interconnected. It's all woven. Every single like action that you take, or it will have a reaction. I know this is one of the just basic laws.
Yeah,
but I see it very clearly. Like
it needs to be said.
And I think that we forget of how true that is. And in the moment, you might not think of how big or small that effect will be after your decision or after your action taken, but it'll be an effect. I think sometimes when you live in a society, in a space, like it's sort of like approved or allowed, or it's okay, so you don't question it. But like by choosing to leave, to have a certain job, or by choosing to have a car, or like all these choices that you have to
not have a car.
But they're okay, even though I think like they're not that healthy. It's very accepted. It's an okay thing to do, but it takes a lot out of. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Absolutely. As we move towards a close, I think the question I want to ask is, what does it mean to you to live an intentional, wholesome life?
I guess for me, there's just like not another option. Like I just don't like. I don't think of a different way. I feel extremely honored and grateful that I've had the experience that I had in Nepal, like being exposed to living in community, being exposed to living a service life. Once I've tried that, for me, there's no going back. Once I saw that, this is a possible way of living, I don't want to live any other way. And I've been put in this position right now due to whatever reason, to live right now in Tulum, to have a job from 9 to 6, to be living in a household, having a car and all these things. And I'm like, okay, that's great. But I'm now more than ever, this has only reassured that I don't want to live this way, that there's different, like, I just want to be really aligned with my values, the values that I hold. And the values that I hold are, I want to protect the elements as much as possible. It's very hard to fight that fight when you're in it. For example, like being back in college and just being like, hey, teach me how to catch water from rain. Like my teacher's like not being interested in teaching me that. Like I respect.
You asked specifically.
Oh, specifically. Oh yeah, hands down. Like I'll be like, teach me how to do this. And they're like, no, that's not part of, like, it was just like hard no. And I appreciate it. And I'm grateful for the people that are like in the system trying to fight that fight.
Yeah.
For me, it's just like fighting fire with fire. It's just not, I have learned that I can only be responsible for my own actions. I can no longer spend time and energy trying to make others change their minds or showing, like, in Nepal, hands down, leading by example. That's what I can do. And I can only be responsible for the way that I eat, the way that I live, the way that I build. That's it. Like, it's no longer like, if you're a vegan or a vegetarian, if you eat meat, I'm responsible for just how I eat. I have gained a lot more just like respect to everyone's path and just really want to honor mine by doing what feels right to me. And to me, that's what feels right. It feels right living in nature, building with earth, growing as much food as I can possibly can, living in community, sharing the spaces with people that I love, not by blood, but this chosen beautiful family. And creating that space, hopefully, with Orion and a lot of our crew back in Nepal. And if we have kids and when we have kids, like to share those and pass that along, again, with not really attachment, because maybe they want to become lawyers and who knows.
Or just the timeline's different. But definitely what I'm hearing is, thank you for that.
Yeah.
It's lead by example, and you become your own role model. You become your best role model. Yeah. And know that each day you can still improve that best version of yourself.
And I still get inspired by a lot of other people that are doing similar things. And I still like love asking and like engaging with like-minded people and asking and sharing knowledge. I think just like also that's a huge thing. I think we've also encountered people that are doing sustainable building. They don't want to share their things. Like they're like, no, I'm just like, what? we're all in this together. Like
Yeah.
I'm happy to share whatever knowledge I have. I'm happy to share it. And it's the life that I would like, the path that I would like to walk on this lifetime, and try to share with people if they're interested. And just, I want to offer a space for others to live that way, to be the better version of themselves. And for me as well, and as I said before, when traveling, you still learn every day, and you can still be a better version of yourself every day. And we're still humans, and we forget, and we have setbacks, and
No doubt.
it's just life. And I wanna say thank you for asking all these questions and walking this beautiful path. I am reflecting a lot to the people and the life that I've had, and I'm really grateful for you to taking me in this journey.
We are literally walking the journey together.
Yeah.
The path. And the behind the scenes is shot by Orion Haas. Where have we recorded this session?
We are currently in Tulum, in this place called Holistika, and they have a little art walk. And if you ever find yourself here, it's very nice. They have a couple of murals. It's in the very young jungle that you have in this region. And we just did a little loop behind Holistika.
Yeah, what a fulfilling, satisfying conversation with Mariana. I wonder what you got out of it. And certainly for me, the conversation around the disconnect of the modern day lifestyle and hearing about her cultural background and early influences, the first travels and that mind expansion that comes with it certainly really hit home. The flavor and context, of course, culturally, geographically is different from my life, but it is so interesting that we could be living worlds away, time zones away, but yet have this similarity and resonance in how we were maybe brought up, and remembering those first moments when your mind just explodes, expands, and formulate different channels and ways of being and ways of being brought up and the foods that you eat. So I really enjoyed that. There was definitely a lot of good laughter and enjoyment when we were connecting more deeply. Yeah, for me, I think the aspects in which Mariana talked into becoming really personally empowered, to that moment of realization that as she learns these new skills and techniques, she's able to do it physically and more. And that shift from not only being able to learn as a student, but to turn it around and become the teacher for others, and really coming from a place of wanting to share this incredible knowledge of building and maintaining your home and other essential structures. So yeah, I find it to be very inspirational, and certainly having worked directly with Mariana in Nepal and in other places, I find that to be absolutely true. And the truth is, she has been doing these workshops and been a teacher worldwide now, in sub-Saharan Africa and the Caribbean, in the Himalayas, as of course we mentioned, and in different parts of Mexico as well. And so I really hope for her and for me and our community worldwide that we get to have Mariana travel now with her baby son to these different places and preserve and pass on this amazing knowledge of natural building, and in doing so, indirectly or directly, inspiring this way of more connected living and thinking more communally instead of individually, and coming back to what's important, which is the self-care and caring for others, the giving back to community, the giving back to the earth, the decentralized nature of knowledge passing, the way that I think a lot of humans and indigenous groups worldwide have been doing it and continue to do so today. So Yeah. It's also really nice to hear that. Yeah. I have a skill and a friendship with Mariana that she values, and I'd love to be there, wherever she and Orion sets up in the future. So wherever I am, I'm keen to visit and spend some time of the year or more there. So yeah, as mentioned in the introduction, this being the very first episode with a guest, I'd love to hear feedback. Please drop me a line, email works, direct messages on social media. If you're subscribed to my newsletter, then that's a good avenue, since you're getting the announcements of new episodes, to drop me a line. Any constructive feedback is greatly valued so that I can continue to be better. And most definitely a shout out to Melissa Caitlin Carter in editing this episode, and my homeboys Carlos Militante and Scott Hansen in creating a lot of the musical tracks that you hear throughout the episode. Thank you, brothers, for your artistry and your beautiful sounds. Last but not least, shout outs in order to my Patreon subscribers. All of you, past and present, have made this production possible in gear, in just the feeling of support, in hiring different folks for their talents and skill sets, putting it all together. This is definitely a communal effort, and certainly the theme of community will be present throughout each episode, I'm certain. So yes, thank you for being here, and until next time, be well. When I was younger, I used to kind of roll my eyes and not at all understand, and of course skip through the credits and acknowledgements when movies and TV shows or podcasts, and the host talks about like, oh, we gotta thank this person and this person. It just goes on and on and on. I never really understood it. And I think in the last few years alone, I've really come around and realized, my goodness, even the smaller projects like this require a whole team. They really require and really benefit from a whole community around it. And so I'm here to proudly acknowledge the humans through the years since the launch of my Patreon in 2018 who have been contributing or contributed in the past at levels at which I just need to say their names and acknowledge all that they've done, the time they've given to give me comments and dropping messages, giving me advice, and of course dropping in their hard-earned dollars or whatever currency they're earning in to support me in all the projects that I've devoted my time to, including the Wilderness Within podcast. So here we go. I want to give a special thank you to Paul Jones, Antoine Mays, Ayana Ballin, Deborah Carson, Renee Dyke, Luke Fernandez, Kelly P., Karina Formile, Kelsey Lynn, Ken Russell, Kelsey Yates, Michael Chung, Evan Stickles, Reiki Corden, Christine Schumann, Lindsay Feburary, I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name and anyone's, Ann Goodman, Yushin Tuan, Otis Skipper, Steve Tracy, Delvin Sokinson, Stephen Moe, Steph Bird Parker, Anna Ritz, Camila Newlands, Dana Wilson, Nara de Garcia, Dora Lee, Orion Haas, Michelle Kisner, Stephen Wong, Gutir Baga, Jackie Chow Solinsky, Romar Smith, Peter Wells, Jackie Chern, Setap Sukpo, Frankie Lee, Jim Barngrover, Lisa Colligan, Merrick Bowers, Ryan Liu, and last but not least, Mikey Learn. Thank you so much, you all. It really means a lot for your support, past, present, future. You make my dreams come true. You allow me to work where I travel to. You allow me to create content where I'm passing through. You allow me to trust that each month I'm going to have this nice little baseline of income that really sustains me, that sometimes really puts food on the table and allows me to go, hey, like I can commit to this project. I'm going to buy that piece of gear. I'm going to hire that person. I'm going to invest in myself, in the services and goods that allow me to create and expand and try new things and experiment and all of this is a part of it. So thank you. I am so grateful